Okay, so we went over all the basics of the final term paper in the last video. Now let's focus on the second assignment for this term paper. First one will be the quiz. As soon as you finish watching this video, you'll have your notes in front of you. Quiz should be a breeze. The next one will be to formulate your thesis statement, draft 1. And I'll talk more about why I added draft 1 to the title in a second. So what you want to do in this thesis statement, this singular sentence, is be specific about what design movement each designer is from. In other words, name the design movement each designer comes from. Don't be general about what they have in common. There would be no point in writing this term paper if they have similarities that a person would expect them to have. The idea is that despite them being from two different design movements, they actually do share some commonalities in their work. You don't want to leave your reader thinking like, yeah, so? You want them you want to pique their interest with the thesis statement. You want them to say, huh, that's interesting. I didn't ever imagine that someone that is, whether it's 20 years apart or 100 years apart and come from two different design movements would have commonalities. And let me just try to give you a design, because I think most of us, whether we have one or are big into them or not, at least know a little bit about car design. So if you were taking a car design history class, you would not compare the design of two designers years apart, from different movements, and say that both of their cars had round wheels, right? That would be ridiculous. People would read that thesis statement and go, what? So even anything nearly obvious like that would be lame. Instead, you might say something that despite these two designers being years apart in their design movements and their aesthetics and their philosophy, if you look at designer A's headlights in this car from 1920, and then we look at this one from 2020, we see that there's a remarkable similarity to the designs. Now that's interesting, right? So what should you talk about when it comes to the design of these graphic designers? You want unlikely formal aspects that the designer's designs have in common. Now, see the next question to help explain what formal aspects are. So I'm going to jump ahead to the next question. When we explore the formal aspects of graphic design, what does the word formal mean? And this is a test question. And here's your two answers to choose from. In this case, formal means fancy, like a formal dance. No. In this case, formal, coming from the word form, refers to the visual aspects of the design. And if you watch that video that I linked in the description of the assignment and mentioned in the last video, it will really help to explain these things, especially if you're not a graphic designer or graphic design student. So formal elements of design that we often mention when we're talking about design would be line, color, space, shape, implied three-dimensional forms, and there we go again with a word that has the same thing but means something different, texture, balance, and so on. Now, a very important thing here to recognize is you don't want to just take two designers from two different designs and then just start looking at their designs with these things in mind. Well, I mean, you do, but you don't want to come up with a thesis that says, oh, designer A and designer B, despite being from design movements, both use the color red. Again, that's kind of like saying, two car designers had round wheels, right? And the same with any of these. You have to do your research. You have to say that despite these designers being from two different design movements that had different philosophies, which we wouldn't expect to see these similarities in their designs, yet we do. That's where the research comes in. That's what, taking the textbook seriously, really understanding these movements will do for you to make for an interesting paper. Now, do keep in mind that this is draft 1 of your final term paper thesis. So what does that mean? Why did I add that to it? Well, there's still some time to go in the class. All I'm asking for you to come up with this week is what your thesis is going to be about. So you're going to have to do some research, take those pairs of designers, figure out which ones you would like to talk about, start doing a little bit of research. Something should come to you. Now, you still have time, though, to do more research. So not only can your thesis change a little bit by the time you write your outline, it probably should, to show that you've done more research. So what will happen is you'll turn this in for the week that it's due. You'll receive some feedback, how it could be better, unless it was perfect to start with. And then you will start working on your outline, doing more research. And by then, you probably want to hone that thesis statement a little bit better. And when you are asked for your outline, I will ask you to put your draft 1 thesis statement and then your current thesis statement so that I can see how it evolves and give you any feedback based on that. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a good idea on how to get started on this term paper, or specifically on the term paper thesis.